us welcome our speaker for the day, Miss Mahalakshmi. She has an HR profile with 12 years of overall experience with more than 10 years in LT construction, buildings and factories, and have worked in the area of acquisition, learning development and talent management. Recently, she had moved to LT Technology Service in April 2021. Her current role in the management is Senior Manager OD. We welcome you, ma'am. Now, I would like to introduce our Head of the Department, Human Resource Management, DG Vaishnav College, Dr. N.C. Martin. He has an highly experienced academician and has about 20 years of academic and administrative experience as professor, HOD, Dean, and Registrar. He did his post-graduation in Labor Management and PhD in Labor Laws from Tamil Nadu Institution of Labor and Studies. He started his career as a lecturer from the same institution. He held various positions in the Arts and Science College, Engineering, and Media College. He has held a position in various educational institutions such as Sri Chandra Prabhu Jain College as Assistant Professor, HOD of MSW Department, SAMS College of Engineering and Technology as Professor, HOD of MBA Department. He was also the placement officer for entire division of SAMS College of Engineering and Technology. During his tenure, he successfully placed engineering and management graduates in top-notch companies of manufacturing and service sectors across the country. He continued his career in St. Joseph College of Arts and Science as Dean of Academics and LV Prasad Film School, one of the best film schools in Asia, working as a registrar. He acted as a jury representing the Employees Federation of Southern Indian for the selection of the companies for the best practice for the year 2018 and 19. He has added to his credit and is expert in subject of labor legislation and industrial relations. He has given centum results in various HR specialized subjects in the university examinations. We welcome you, sir. The meeting is recorded for educational purpose. In case of the participants can unmute themselves or type questions in chat box. Now I request Dr. N.C. Martin to speak a few words about the topic for the day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. First of all, a very happy good evening to honorable present here to attend this webinar. So, on behalf of Management Secretary Sri Ashok Kumar Mundraji, our Principal Dr. Santosh Babu, I welcome all the participants and I'm very pleased to welcome our resource person of the day, Ms. Mahalakshmi, Senior Manager, OD L&T Technology Services. So this is our 67th series of webinar. So it started from the last pandemic and we are still continuing and we are progressing on that with the support and cooperation of our students. So coming to the topic, so I don't want to highlight much on that because we have a Maha ma'am to orient much on this one to bring out the talent that is being talent versus human. So every human being has been blessed with different abilities, talents, and capabilities, and so on. So as an individual, we differ from each other as we have different interests and preferences. So one might be good at maybe dancing, but not in acting, while another might be good at acting, but not in music like that. So these talents will define a person as an artist, and any of the talents when used efficiently so would surely help in their career. And this is why how some people are really very successful in their life. So each art form has its own meaning and a beauty, we can say, so which make it stand out among others. So it is often believed that a talented person can be better a judge of another talented person's. So with a little or no knowledge of art. So this belief is really true. Even I believe that. So real talent can identify other talents better. A person has acquired the ability to be a creative and innovative. So he can go on with the squeezing every drop of meaning in every art form by knowing that. For example, a person with no creative approach would not be able to appreciate the beauty in any form of art, say like a dance or a singing, whatever it is. So this belief arises from the fact that once someone has been trained to look at things deeply and observing the creative aspects of art, so the individual can use this ability to appreciate every the form of art. So is the every talented person, so they born talented, or have they been developed a certain way, is $1 million question. So everyone is gifted with something special, so within them, so that makes them different from others, as I already mentioned. So it does take time to nurture that hidden potentials, but once it is unleashed, it is bound to shine to its brightest. So there is no one stopping you from chasing what you want to be succeed and to very successful in a career. Sometimes it might seem that some people are born with talents. They may be like a good orator, so good in writing, good in leadership and administration, so on, and that it is not possible to learn them through a practice. This is also true only to we can say to some extent. So behind that, the inheritance does not play an important role in that. So naturally talented people say they do exist and they are really blessed. So it is always possible to refine whatever you are really good in. For example, we can say our master blaster Sachin Tendulkar, the greatest the batsman of the history. So he has created various records in the field of cricket. But what about his son? I'm not negatively saying, but this is somewhat a inherent talent. So many people struggle with finding what they are good at. So it is common among children to practice every activity, and they do develop a particular interest during the course of time. So this will really help them to realize so what is their interest. So are they engaged, from where they can continue to follow from based on the interest, and it is their choice. So there is no one stopping you from chasing what you want. So it all comes from that is to how much you want to achieve. So it all depends upon once again from a person to person. So once if you're really focused on what you're doing and you know where you want to reach, the spark will really remain ignited till you reach the greatest height existing. And with this, I conclude and leave the session to our resource person. So, who is the right person to bring out what is being talented and what is a human, and throw some good inputs and to make the sessions very interesting. And with this, I stop and leave the session. Thank you. All the best.
Sure. Sure, sir. Thank you so much for that piece of enlightenment that we had. This is a personal request. I have been facilitating sessions online. I know the pandemic, has taken a very different mode with which we interact with each other. So, my humble request, in case few of you can give me company by turning on your videos. In case you're not comfortable, I'm fine, but few of you, if possible, please do turn on your videos. That's a humble request, so that I have some company to look and speak. Sure. So having said that, thank you so much for this opportunity. So thanks to Fastmin for reaching me out. Thanks to Jagdish for being in constant touch with me. So first of all, thanks to both of you. Okay, so it is always a happy occasion when you go back to your alma mater. So I passed out of the MSW department in 2009. So it always brings back those fresh memories. I tend to get very nostalgic about the classes that we attended, the sessions that we underwent and all of that. So it's a good feeling. Um, to keep it short, the idea behind this session is to just share a few drops that I've gathered by virtue of my experience. So I'm sure each one of you, so it's been what, 12 years now since I passed out. So all of you are much more educated than what I was at that point in time, the level of information that all of you have at grabs is no way compared to what we had at that point in time. So I think the world is moving at a great pace now, and I think the way of looking at things, the way of looking at people is changing. So and that's why I feel it's all the more important to look into ourselves time and again. So it becomes important. And that is why I was thinking what to, when they asked me to give a title for the webinar, I was just thinking what will make sense. So to me, being humane is the motto of the HR profession, according to me, as an HR professional. So everything else comes next. So I think that's the premise that which I have personally worked on, and I've learned and seen very capable leaders doing. So I think I've imbibed my motto from there, and I've also seen this rush for talent. So I think some like Professor Martin said, some of us struggle to understand what talent lies within each of us. Some of us struggle to understand what is my ability versus what is on offer. So I think there are a lot of dynamics that each of us go through. Uh, but end of the day, I feel there are certain key points that kind of sails us through. So I thought maybe whatever points I feel make sense to me, maybe I'll share those few pointers with all of you, and maybe I'll use a couple of videos to support whatever I have learned. And then I also want this to be slightly interactive. So please feel free to use the chat box or stop me at any point in time, raise your hand, and please join me in sharing whatever knowledge and wisdom you guys have. Right? So I'm looking forward to that as well. So I know it's been a full day of classes for all of you, and I know how it feels at the end of a full day class. So mentally, it's draining. So I'll try not to bore you guys. I'll try to stay as relevant as possible. Right. So the first point that I thought makes sense is one word that's called hard work. Throughout my career, if I should say the 12 years, and even before that, so I have thoroughly understood that there is just no substitute for hard work. Um, I understand there are a lot of ways to work smart, and I also understand that you start working the smarter way once you have done the hard work. So and I have learned another thing very clearly, that there are absolutely no shortcuts whatever to success. There are absolutely no shortcuts to success. All right. So these are the first two things that I thought I will start with. The third thing I was wanting to share was the confidence that each one of us carry, irrespective of the background that each one of us come from, the exposure that each one of us have got so far. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how do you want to live life going forward. I think that's what matters. So irrespective of whether I'm from a village, I'm from a city, I'm from a town, just after a point in time, all lines are blurred. So everybody looks at you as an HR professional. So I think most of you should have work experience. So are there people who have got more than 2 years of work experience in this group?
I'm close to 2 years.
Close to 2 years. Okay. Anybody else who has got work experience in any industry? Any industries that you people have worked for? Can you just share the industries that you have worked in?
Yes, ma'am. 3 years in hospital sector.
3 years in hospital.
I was a nurse.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyone else having worked with any other industry? Okay. So I think people who have work experience get a feel of what I'm talking about. Now, people who are freshers will start understanding, because I'm sure you have your internships as part of your curriculum, right? So you start experiencing that particular moment where you start slowly understanding what HR is all about. So the way you look at HR concepts in your curriculum and the way you apply it at work, I won't say they don't match at all, but you gain a very different perspective when you actually apply your learnings at work on the job. And I'm happy. Thanks, Anusha, for sharing that you were a nurse. So the compassion that that profession carries is absolutely essential to me as an HR professional. So the next thing you know that builds confidence to me is the way I want others to treat me. I treat others the same way. It's actually a very simple thing. I want to treat others the way I expect others to treat me. Okay, so I think that's a very simple thing. I know it's easier said than done, but I think focused attention to this will pay a lot of reward. I'll probably share one quick example that I had. So I used to work with the head of HR directly. So his secretary, one day when we left office, his secretary complained of a bad headache. So the head of HR said, "Okay, take care. Let's catch up tomorrow." So the next day morning, I go and meet the head of HR, because it was a very critical meeting scheduled. So I had to meet him the first thing in the morning and update him. So I rushed to his cabin. I wish him and I start talking about that particular meeting. And he immediately stops me and says, "Maha, how is that person's headache?" So, I'm stumped. So I said, "Sorry, sir, what did you say?" So he says, "This person told me yesterday that he had a bad headache, right? So how is he feeling now? Did you guys check?" I went back and said, "Sorry, let me check and come back." Then he says, "Why you guys don't talk to each other? Don't you even check how that guy is feeling and all of that stuff?" And that's when I realized the importance of that humaneness, right? So I think these things are not taught. They are part of certain value systems that we live. Those are certain belief systems that you have, right? So I think this head of HR that I worked with has been my mentor throughout, and he continues to be my mentor. So you feel like a child. The head of HR is the executive vice president, and he's like some 14, 15 levels up. That's the gap between the two of us. But he gives you that opportunity. He treats you well. He beats you up, and he also applies oil on the wounds as well. So it needs both, right? So you look at that person as a parent more than a manager. So I think these are certain very critical things that and these are very small little things. So we always talk about uh, big big things. We always want to think big, but I think these small little things create a huge impact in terms of culture, in terms of how you treated at the workplace. So and I also like this word in English which says courtesy. So unfortunately, we tend to forget that word courtesy. So when I say courtesy, it's just about greeting each other when you go to work. It's just about saying a thank you when somebody opens the door for you, when somebody helps you with something. uh, when somebody brings you a cup of water. It's just that act of saying thank you. It's also this act of responding to people, right? So I think responsiveness is the other critical element. I feel as an HR professional, it's important because there may be 100 emails in the mailbox when I start the day, right? So it's not necessary that I have answers to all those 100 emails, but I should at least spend that minute to each of that email saying that I have the answer, or saying that I will come back to you with the answer in such and such time. So just respond. And I think all of us understand the difference between reacting and responding, right? So it's about responding to whatever it is. So it is about responding to somebody's query. It's about responding to somebody's um, interest. It's about responding to somebody's concern. It's about responding to somebody's issue, whatever it may be, whether I have the answer or not. I can go back and say I don't have the answer, let me check and come back. Even that is a response. So I think one problem that happens is we get sometimes bombarded with too many questions at the same point in time. So when we run as part of the leadership development process, when we, for example, we run an assessment center for few hundreds of people, and when all of them come back and bombard my mailbox saying when are the results expected, so when are you going to come back next, and all of that stuff. At one point you feel that you're getting bombarded by emails, and it's getting too much. But for a minute, when you put yourself in that person's shoes, so this is where the next important element of empathy comes in. As an HR professional, when you start empathizing with your employees, had I been that person, what would I have done? Had I attended the assessment center process, I would have gone back to my HR and asked the same question, because I'm curious to know where I am, how I had performed, and what are the next steps in store for me. So I think responsiveness and empathy, they go hand in hand, right? So when you start looking yourself from the other person's perspective, you naturally tend to be responsive. Okay. It can be a simple thing of answering phone calls. So when I used to work in the talent acquisition function, so when there was a ramp up in hiring, so there used to be round the clock hectic days, and it used to be constant. So I used to be the first person to reach office, and I used to be the last one to leave office. So I worked that way, and because the role demanded that effort, and there was ramp up. So at that point in time, your phone just does not stop ringing. So sometimes you tend to get distracted because you have a lot of things to complete, but the phone keeps distracting you. And I many colleagues, senior colleagues, have suggested that I answer all the phone calls and I end up staying late, and it can get very bombarding. Uh, but I always felt as a candidate, whenever I approached an employer, whenever I tried contacting the HR, I always felt upset when the HR did not answer my call. So I always remembered that, and I made it a point that I will answer phone calls, and whenever there were critical deliverables in place, I will probably move away from my workstation. We generally tend to do that, right? So you want some focused attention when there are critical deliverables. So I move away to a conference room, complete that, and come back, because I generally can't sit quiet when the phone rings. I tend to get distracted. So and to my surprise, when I kept traveling to other locations to deliver training programs, there have been employees who came back and said, "Ma'am, you are the one who responded to all my calls, and you are the one who prepared my offer letter. It's because of you that I'm in here." So it's like somebody has given me an award at that point in time, and this candidate probably connects with me some. I think he connected with me some 5-6 years down the line. So he comes and says, You remember me, you were the one who answered the calls, ma'am. You will not remember because you did this too. And I've heard this from quite a few of them. And that's when I realized how much value it adds to that person. It's just a very, very minor thing that I may have done, but it adds so much value to that person. So I think empathy is the buzzword. Okay, so please remember, had I been you, what would I have done? So please remember this in every context, is my request. Because going forward, once you start working, there are different circumstances that you will face, right? So there are good days, there are not so good days, and there are bad days. So it's natural for all of us to get upset at the first instance, but just think about what you would have done had you been in that position. So the head of HR that I was talking to, he once came and blasted the team, all of us. He came and blasted us because we'd done something. We probably not paid attention to a very critical deliverable, and he came out and blasted all of us. All right. So, and then he calls each of us to his cabin and he probably says, "I'm so sorry. I had blasted all of you." And he told me that. So I went back and told him, "Sir, I completely understand." And I told him that unfortunately, empathy is now becoming, a buzzword only in training programs. People, we don't practice empathy, and that's why probably you have this feeling. I completely understand. Maybe you had a bad start to the day, or you have a lot of pressure from the leadership coming in to you, and that's why you had to say that. And he sounded quite surprised. He said, I did not expect this response from you. And I said, this is how I'm learning to practice whatever we discuss in training programs. So I think that's empathy is the buzzword. The other thing, when you start working in a corporate, is you will not stay as an individual, right? So you will have to mingle with people, you will have to work in teams. So there are a lot of people, like how Professor Martin said, right? So there are people who have talents in very different pockets. So some of us are good with Excel sheets, some of us are good with PowerPoint presentations, some of us are good with creating dashboards and all of that stuff. So each of us have different comfort zones to live in, right? So trust me, when I started working, my Excel skills were very poor. When I had to handle huge data in Excel sheet, I struggled. Okay, I struggled. And there was this expert gentleman who was there in my team. He was a very senior person. So he always helped me out with the formulas that you apply in your Excel sheets, the way you look at data in an Excel sheet. Excel sheet is a very tricky tool that we have at hand. If you know how to work on Excel, it makes life extremely easy for you. But if you don't know to work on Excel, it just the reverse to you. It's as simple as keying in a date in the same format. It's as simple as typing out names either in the small letters or your capital letters. You can't jumble it up. So I think the way you start doing Excel, right? So the way you practice working on an Excel, it becomes a habit. And Excel has too many features to make life easy. But the only catch is we should know, and we should learn about those features. And this is where, to me, curiosity comes in. So as an HR professional, I think I should always be curious to understand how things work. I should always be curious to understand why people behave the way they do. I should always be curious to understand why I think in this particular way and why the other person looks at it from a very different perspective. So basic curiosity, you always are inquisitive, you always have those questions in your mind. It's okay, they are stupid questions, but don't stop the questions coming in. The questions need to keep coming in. And if curiosity is going to die, then I think you slowly start losing that interest, right? So to me, curiosity uh, is that fuel that keeps me going despite the challenges that I face. It's okay that I don't know the answers, but it's very important to have those questions with me. Always carry questions with you. No? You will definitely find the person who will be able to answer those questions. And I trust me, I have experienced this. I have uh, people have done this to me in my work experience, and I have this strong belief that I will carry those questions with me. When I ask that question, I will ask the question saying, please pardon me, this might look very stupid, but I have this question with me. And people have appreciated saying, you have asked this question, that itself is big. So carry that curiosity with you and have the courage to fail. Please have the courage to fail. Doesn't matter. Okay? The level of mistakes that I have made in my career, and I continue to make those mistakes. So the head of HR will always ask me whenever I go to him with a report or an analysis. The first question he will ask me is, Maha, how many mistakes this time? So I will go back and tell him, sir, I have mistakes, but I've made sure I have repeated none of my mistakes. And he'll be like, good, that's what I expect. So I have done mistakes, I've done errors of various you guys can't imagine. I've done mistakes of different magnitudes, and I've learned from them. I've burnt my fingers. Sometimes the mistakes that I did has affected other people, but they've always come back and told me that, don't worry, this is what normally happens to all of us. They've been very generous in coming and supporting me always. So I have done that. And I definitely built that courage in me, saying, I will not move away from my mistakes. When somebody pulls me up and says, did you make the mistake? I'll openly say, I'm extremely sorry, but I'm the one responsible for this, nobody else. So please have the courage to speak up for your own self, irrespective of who you are responding to. It may be the CEO, it may be the head of HR, it may be whoever, it may be a housekeeping staff, doesn't matter. What matters is what you believe you have done, right? So please have the courage to stand up for yourself. If you are right, please have the courage to stand up and say, I am right. If you are wrong, please have the courage to stand up and accept, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. So I think all these are like I said, the small little things, but they add so much value, and they speak so much about you to the other person, right? So as I said, so have the courage and have the curiosity. The other thing I've always wondered about is humility. I always love this word, humility. So humility is what? So humility is about being grounded, right? So irrespective of the 7-digit or the 8-digit paycheck that you draw, irrespective of uh, the number of degrees you have behind your name, irrespective of the awards that you've won. Humility is one thing that always makes me look at the other person with respect, right? So humility is one which always keeps reminding me that, hey, you're not the greatest person in the world. Humility is the one which always comes back to me and says, look at the other person. He did not have any opportunity, but still that person has grown. You had the luxury of a good college education, you had the luxury of a corporate career, whereas the other person didn't have, but he still made it in life. So humility helps you with that perspective. And humility always keeps you grounded, right? So irrespective of the laurels that you've achieved in life, I think humility always keeps you grounded. I'll share one small anecdote from my own personal experience. So I happened to be the state topper in my 12th class. Okay, I had taken commerce as my subject, so I happened to score centum in all my four major papers, and it was on the state rank. So now, when this happened, I have a very poor handwriting. Okay, so in 12th, because I had this commerce stream and I did my BCom later, so I was very conscious that my handwriting should not fail me in my 12th. Because me being from the open category, it becomes, I know how tough it is to get a seat in a college, right? That too for a BCom. So I was praying, and God's grace, I got this state rank, and I was away from home. As a family, we'd gone to visit our family deity. So I could not access the results. I was extremely tense, and when I called up my school to understand what my results were, they said, "Where are you? We're all looking out for you. There are people from the media waiting outside." I said, "What happened?" So that's when I realized that all this has happened. And by the time I came back, it had settled down a bit, and my photograph was there in all the vernaculars, English, Tamil, everything. So you felt like this. You have become an overnight hero somehow. So there were a lot of programs that were scheduled post that. So there were principals of schools who invited me, saying, you please come and talk to our students. You inspire us and all of that stuff. So sometimes suddenly I was actually thinking, what have I done? Is it that big at all? So this happened, and then when I went and joined college, the faculty who was processing my application, she said, we blessed to have you. We are lucky to have you in our college. So I joined that, and then I subsequently went on to my masters and all of that. Now, why I'm saying this? So the same me, okay, when I passed out of my masters in 2009 from DG Vaishnav, it was recession. All right. So when I got a state rank, everybody told me that this is going to be something huge on my resume. Whoever is going to look at your resume is going to just take you in. All right. So when this was what I heard, and when we started the master's journey, we know that there's going to be campus placement. We're all going to get good jobs and all of that. So we had all those dreams, right? So when we passed out in 2009, I think March or April, that's when your exams get over and all. So the Lehman Brothers collapsed the previous September. So 2008 September, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and there was recession, and there was no campus. There was no corporate willing to come and visit us. And all of us in our batch, trust me, all of us in our batch were literally on the roads, on the streets for the next 6 months. So by the time I landed on my first job, when I joined. My first job was in BMW. So I joined BMW on the 19th of November 2009. Okay. But I think we passed out somewhere in March or April. So that gap of 5 or 6 months, was extremely bad for each one of us. And I always personally thought that, what have I done that this is happening to me? I was very angry with my life, because I always, in terms of the marks that I had, even in my masters, I topped the class in my last semester, my scores were good. Then I always had this lingering question, why me? Why am I subjected to all this? Of course, I was not alone. I'm talking about us as a batch. So I did not get answers then. So when I joined my first job, I had to travel. My cab used to come at 5:50 in the morning, 5:50 in the morning. I was the first pickup, so I had to wake up at 4:30 and get ready for work. And I had to travel up and down 100 kilometers because the plant was in Mahindra city. So life was not good. So I was already, all of us felt it quite depressing that we had to go through this hardship. And eventually, when I landed on my first job, it was not that good, because it took time for me to come out of that mindset, saying that life is not that bad, it's getting better. So this travel took a toll on me. So I had that. I continued there for work for about 3 months, and then I moved into a startup process consulting firm. And then I started learning. We started working with different clients. The name of the firm was Kelsa Consulting. So I joined them as their first employee. So there were 3 veterans who had started that organization, and I had a lot to learn from them. So I had a brief 9-month stint with them before I joined L&T. So that's the journey. Now, why did I say this? I say this because life is not all rosy, so each one of us go through these ups and downs, and I always believe that is what makes me what I am. So I'm actually thankful to what happened to me in my life. I'm actually thankful to those bad experiences in life that uh, otherwise maybe I won't be as mature as I am now. So maybe those challenges made me look at life from a very different perspective. Um, so as part of my masters, I started visiting. We had these NGO visits and all of that, right? As part of MSW, I think MHRM is more of a corporate exposure that you get by virtue of your internships, right? But MSW, the first year, is fully focused on your societal orientation. So you have those visits to orphanages, you work with hospitals, you work with leprosy organizations, so on and so forth, right? So there were a lot of instances which were very disturbing to me. So those instances were turning points to me, because I was still a kid, who always wanted to have fun. We wanted to enjoy college life and all of that stuff. So I went through these experiences, it gave me that side of responsibility in life. So when I went to this I think it's not an orphanage, it's an adoption center. So I went to this adoption center in my first internship. When I went to this adoption center, there were babies, right? So there were babies starting from a 2-month old baby to a 5-year-old kid. So you had babies across age groups, and there were these maids who were taking care of them, and there was this matron who was leading this. So the first day when I went, I am normally fond of kids. I like playing with kids. It's a great stress buster for me personally. So yeah, the minute I look at, there was this lovely kid who was all bubbly, a girl child who was all bubbly, flowery. So the minute I saw her, I carried her. She and could feel that happiness in her. So she started smiling. She started jumping with joy. And this matron came to me and said, "Why did you carry her?" I said, "Ma'am, sorry, what's wrong? She's such a lovely child." She immediately, the matron asked me, "You carry her today. Who will carry her tomorrow?" So that came like a bomb to me. So I never thought of it. So she said, "Please put her back in the cradle. She should not build that expectation that there's somebody who will come and carry me daily." So that was a harsh reality that I felt. And trust me, this lovely child, the minute I carried her, her pupils were moving very fast. And then later I understood that the child is blind, the child can't see. So that was the next harsh reality that I faced. So this was one life changing experience, and I happened to do volunteering for one of the camps for leprosy people. Okay, so leprosy patients. So when I did this camp, there was this doctor from North India, and this camp was supported by the Ramakrishna Mission. So this was part of my CSR internship. So the company that I was working in, they deputed me to this camp. So I go to Ramakrishna Mission on that day for this leprosy camp, and this doctor, being a North Indian, he does not know Tamil. And the patients who came for the camp, they are typically from the various slums in Chennai. So they do not understand Hindi, neither they speak English. So they know only Tamil. Fortunately, I speak Hindi. I read, write, speak Hindi because I've learned Hindi since childhood. So this doctor told me, you just be a mediator between the patient and me. So just keep translating what I say and what they say. So I just did this role. And trust me, there were patients who had varying degrees of leprosy, light from very minor stage to a very critical stage where the wound is very severe and the wound emanates a stench, so sometimes I felt actually nauseating to stand next to them, and I was always praying that I should not puke out. Trust me, this is 100% truth. So when I started meeting them, when I at the end of the camp, Ramakrishna Mission treats volunteers very well, because to them service is the uh, highest thing the man that a man can do, so they honor you, so you are served this elaborate lunch along with the doctor, so the doctor is seated next to you, so volunteers are treated equivalent to them. But I trust me, I couldn't have lunch that day because this was too much of a thing for me to take in. I always prayed through the day that the stench that is coming in from the wound, no way should come out on my face. Because it will tend to hurt the patients very badly, and all the patients, trust me, they put their hand on my head and they say, God bless you, you've translated our concerns. Our kids have deserted us. My son has thrown me out of the house. So I had a lot of these stories that those patients had to tell me. And I did nothing but to just stand there and do this conversation, just act as a mediator. But I think these are two key instances that I thought I will share with you. So that each one of us, have these experiences that we go through. And I also have this strong belief, the earlier the experience comes to you in life, the better it is. Why? Because you start getting better from early on. So sometimes what happens is I should know that I'm wrong when I'm let's say at 30, so that I don't make that mistake when I'm 35 years. So when I'm already 35, I think I've lost so much time. So the earlier you get bad experiences, just be thankful about it. Just be thankful, just be grateful that you got it early on in life, so that you start becoming a better person as you move on. Because as we know, right, it becomes difficult to look within ourselves as we grow older. The younger I am, the better uh, probably the younger I am, the better moldable I am, if I put it that way. So I think these are certain experiences that always look at the human side of it. The other thing that I always felt is important to me as an HR professional is about resilience. Just a second. Yes. Sorry. So the other thing that is of interest to me is resilience. So how do you? What's your idea of resilience? Anybody who wants to share? Because
Ma'am,
I think I have been doing the talking all along. Sorry.
yes, ma'am. Resilience is actually about to bounce back, ma'am. The ability to bounce back.
Great. Thanks, Amrita, for that. So, irrespective of how deep you've fallen, it's about how quick you raise from the fall, So, that's about resilience, right? So, you come back every time you fall, the stronger I come back. Every time I fall, the stronger I come back. So just have that in mind, and that's where I said this. Please knock off this fear of failure. I think fear of failure is my biggest enemy. So don't worry. As I said, just knock it off the head. It's okay if people laugh at me. It's okay. Let people laugh at me. I will learn from my mistakes because somebody has laughed at their mistakes earlier. I was not there to evidence that. Okay, so it's just that point of it. Just remember that. Don't feel insulted that people found out that I don't know something. Be thankful that they found out you don't know something which you don't know. Okay, so I think just build that attitude. I think eventually it's about the attitude that you carry towards everything in life. And end of the day, it's just attitude that matters. Just attitude. Okay. Just think about it. Attitude is a very interesting term that all of us know. Uh, I have this lady bringing flowers to me every day. She brings flowers, and we buy flowers from the same lady every day. She comes home every day to give me those flowers, and my mom talks to her. And her husband, he undergoes dialysis. I understand he undergoes dialysis, and she has to incur that expense for him. And she's not well off, right? So she's from a very modest background, and I'm always in awe of her positivity. The moment she comes home, she always hears all of us saying, how many of you at home today? How are you guys feeling today? She looks at me and says, today you're looking free. Is it a holiday for you? Otherwise, I don't see you at all. You always tend to be busy with work. Yeah, she always strikes this conversation with you, and you never get an inkling that there's such a big burden lingering in her mind throughout her life. Her husband is a liability for whom she has to work. But I never found this until my mom told me that she goes through this. And she's such a big inspiration to me. I always look up talking to her. She never fails to smile. She never fails to make jokes. And I always pick it up from her. It's very fascinating to me. Sometimes at work we always say life is very tough, life is boring. I have to go through so many deadlines, life is tough and all of that. But these are people who come back to me and say, dude, it's all about attitude. It's all about how you look at those challenges in life. Yeah. So I think I'll quickly play one video. I don't know, some of you might have seen this video. So let me quickly try and play that video for you.
lot of emphasis on
I will share my screen. Just let me know. One of you, please let me know if you can see and listen to the video, please.
don't we? I mean, we look at someone who's talented and say, wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
The audio is clear?
Yes, yes. ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. All right.
Right? Talent does that to people. It dazzles, Talent.
I'll play it from the start.
A lot of us place a lot of emphasis on talent, don't we? I mean, we look at someone who's talented and say, wow. Right? Talent does that to people. It dazzles, Talent dazzles. And you look at talent and say, wow, I wish I could be like that. And yet you find that excellence is not about talent alone. In fact, a major part of excellence has nothing to do with talent. And in course of time, once you go beyond a certain level, ability or talent is the most useless virtue to possess. It's what you do with that talent that matters. And that's why he used the word that I love, attitude. Beyond the point, it is attitude that counts for far more than talent. Because talent breeds an ego. And talent never solves problems beyond a point. And I was fascinated by something that Sandy Gordon said when we were doing a program together. Because I had seen a lot of young cricketers, extremely talented, who the moment they faced a roadblock did not know what to do. Because they had never had to struggle to succeed. They always used their talent to succeed. And Vinod Kambli is an example of that. The moment Courtney Walsh bounced him in Bombay, he was 22 years old. Was he? Yeah, he was 22 years old then. In 1994, he was 22 years old. Didn't know what to do, did not play a test match after that. His last test match was when he was 22 years old. Just did not know how to play the bouncing ball because talent had solved everything for him before. In the Australian Army, when they are, and this is something that doesn't come from sport, but it's something a sports scientist told me, that when they're building an elite core team, they look at your career record, your track record, and if you've never failed, they don't pick you. They don't pick you because they say, if this man experiences failure, will he know what to do? They pick people who failed and bounced back. And that is where your attitude comes through. And I mean, let's look at excellence. What is excellence about? It's about being in the top 10% in your profession. I mean, I know I'm talking to people who want to be in the top 1%, but there are a lot of ordinary people around us around. So let's say top 10%. Is talent important when you get to be in the top 10%? I mean, everybody in the top 10% will have the same talent, right? So what's your USP? It's what you do with the talent that counts. And unfortunately in our sport, and I think in India as a nation, we're dazzled by talent a great deal. I found that beyond a certain time in sport, as indeed in broadcasting, that your work ethic and your attitude counts from far more than talent.
So, is that clear? Was it audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you could follow the video, right?
Yes, ma'am. It is clear.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Nikita. I see Anusha raise her hand. Yes, Anusha?
No, ma'am, that was by mistake.
Sure. Okay. So, that's one video that I always look at when somebody talks about, talent versus attitude. I think end of the day, all of us have different talents, and this head of HR always used to tell me, that you can't hide talent. Your talent has to come out, has to surface out, and there will be people around you who will make that happen. Just have that belief, that it will happen, and never quit that easily. So that's where I spoke about resilience, right? So there will be challenges. You will fail 5 times, 10 times, just doesn't matter. It only matters that the 10th time you're going to come up the strongest that you can, and still come back and do what you thought was not possible. And I think beyond a point, it's beyond a point, who is your competitor? Who do you want to compete with when you join a corporate? I just want to understand from a few of you. So who you feel is going to be a competitor when you start working?
You yourself, ma'am. Ourself is a great competitor, ma'am.
Great, Punita. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Ma'am, here a healthy competition would be like to consider people from the same level as me, in the level of organization I meant.
Sure. Thanks, Fasmin, for that. So, beyond a point, you start competing with your own self. So initially you start competing with your peers. You start looking at how your peers perform, and how are you ranked vis-a-vis your peers and all of that, right? But beyond a point, I think you start competing with yourself, and I think you are your biggest competitor. Okay, and try challenging your own self every time. Try challenging your own comfort zone. Try coming out of your comfort zone. Give that challenge to your own self, as and when you reach certain milestones that you have planned. Okay, because you will have to keep challenging yourself as you keep moving up the ladder to bring out the best. And I think only then you will unleash, like Professor Martin said, you at some point you need to unleash what is within each one of you. And you are the best person who can unleash the power that you have within. So just have that belief in you. And I think I know I have only 1 more minute, but with your permission, I'll maximum take. I'll maximum try and wind it up by 6:35, if that's okay with all of you.
No issues, ma'am.
Sure.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. So, the last couple of things that I thought I should share, always try and understand the difference between curiosity and concern. So what do I mean by this? So when you join a corporate, when you start working, there are people who come and talk to you. There are two groups of people. There's one group which is curious about what you're working on, what things happening with you. So those are opportunities where they try to get information out of you. And there's this other group of people who are genuinely concerned about you. So they will always check, saying, "Are you okay? Are you overloaded? Do you need help?" So always, I think, try and make this distinction between who the curious people are and who the concerned people are, and just be slightly careful with the curious bunch of people, because you never know what information comes out, what information you will spill out, to them. So just be slightly mindful of that particular population. And I think you will learn this as you keep moving with people, as you keep interacting with people. The last segment that I wanted to share with you was the one book that I think adds a lot of value to each one of us is this book by Marshall Goldsmith, which is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Yeah, and I'm sure all of you, few of you must have read that book. And Marshall Goldsmith, lists some 20 bad habits to avoid, and one of the bad habit is inacceptance. So inacceptance is when you make a mistake and when you're not ready to accept it. The other bad habit, he says, is adding too much value. So which means when somebody comes to you with an idea, you instead of appreciating or acknowledging that idea, you start thinking about what spin you can give to that idea, what value you can add to that idea, whether it is relevant or not. Sometimes we tend to add too much value. So that's another bad habit that we have. The third bad habit that I think I have consciously avoided doing is snatching credit that is due to somebody else. Taking credit which is not due to me. To me, that is a sin to commit. And why I say that's a sin to commit, because it has huge implications. The level of hurt that the other person gets when you snatch his or her credit, you just can't imagine the consequences that hurt can create. So even when there have been circumstances when I got the credit, I was always upfront saying, "I'm sorry, but I don't deserve the credit. It's that person deserves it." And irrespective of the forum that I've been in, I've always made a conscious decision to mention who the credit is due to. So I think that's one conscious thing that I have practiced, and I keep practicing that. And the next bad habit is probably starting a sentence with no, but, however. I had this bad habit, so, and the head of HR that I mentioned, he always used to point out saying, "Why do you start?" I didn't realize that I always start the sentence with no. So it immediately sends an indirect message that I know better than the other person. So avoid those. So these were some critical 4 bad habits that I thought it will be relevant. But please grab. There is a PDF version that is readily available. If you want, I can share it with Jagdish and he can share it with all of you. Please find time to go through that book and have it handy with you. I think that adds a lot of value as we move on in life. And I think the last point that I wanted to tell you all is be good with what we are. All of us are blessed with a good family. We are blessed with a good education and all of that. So always count your blessings. So always try and think about what all I have, that the other person does not have. Also please have this habit of counting your blessings. So the minute you start counting whatever good things you have a family, you have a good friend circle, you have good professors, you have access to technology. This is all luxury which many others don't have. Many others don't have access to a simple smartphone, but all of us are blessed with a smartphone. We have blessed with a laptop. We have this connectivity, and I think these are all small blessings, right? We have a good network. So please remember to count your blessings, and I think that helps us and takes us a long way. Now, so I will probably end this session with a quick video clip, and then I think we will open the floor for any comments or questions that you may have.
Six, 2018, Prince Charles wanted to give Ratan Tata the Lifetime Achievement Award for Philanthropy at Buckingham Palace. Everything was set. It was under the auspices of the British Asian Trust. I reached London on the 2nd or the 3rd of February, and there were 11 missed calls from Mr. Tata. I said, God, what's happened? So I'm picking up my bags at Heathrow from the conveyor belt, and I call Mr. Tata. I said, what's happened? He says Tango and Tito, his dogs, one of them had fallen terribly ill. He's saying, I can't leave him and come.
So sensitive.
I said, Mr. Tata, Prince Charles has organized this Lifetime Achievement Award. He didn't come.
He didn't come.
And you know what Prince Charles said?
Yes.
He says, that's a man. Shakespeare ends Julius Caesar in a very fine way. He says the elements were so mixed in him of Brutus that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man. That's the man that Ratan is. That's why the house is what it is. That's why the house of Tata is what it is. That's why it is on stable course. Leadership is not about what you do. Leadership is also about what you believe in. And sometimes what you do and what you believe in merge. Often we do things that we want other people to see. We do it for the optics.
Yes.
He generally believes.
Okay, so I think that's the video that I wanted to share at the end, and thank you so much for patiently listening to me. I'm sorry if I've bored all of you through this monologue, but I felt these were certain things that I wanted to share with all of you. Thank you so much, each one of you, and have a blessed day ahead, and wishing each one of you a great journey in life, both in your professional and your personal life. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your informative session. Now we can have some Q&A session.
Sure.
Hi, ma'am. The session was extremely nice, and thank you so much for coming. I just have one question for you. So, you recently moved into a senior manager OD role. From L&T B&I, you moved into a different sector altogether. What are the challenges that the new role bring to you, and how did you handle them? And how is the experience coming from a different sector to altogether? You were so comfortable with the sector for 10 years, and you came to a new sector. How is the experience treating you?
Okay, thanks for that question, Fasman. So I'll be honest with you. It in some sense it's a cultural shock for me, because construction, the way of life, the business that we do is very different. And here it's more of an engineering services industry. It's not IT, but you apply technology to your engineering services. So we are a pure play engineering services and an R&D organization. That's how we position ourselves. So there are a lot of youngsters, sitting there in these labs, and they come up with a lot of creative ideas to run vehicles, to build factories and all of that stuff. So it's a very happening place, and there it was a happening place in terms of people who meddle their hands with their mud and clay, and they bring out models, right? So that's those are buildings that keep coming up. In terms of culture, the minute we step in there, there's a lot of in terms of tenure, the hierarchy, the tenure, that was a very different environment there. And you had this culture of a sir and ma'am, right? So here it's entirely the other way around. So irrespective of the person's tenure, his position, his or her role in the hierarchy, you call people by names, and that's a huge cultural change for me, because I've lived that life, like you said, for about 10.5 years, and habits die hard, right? So I'm coming to terms slowly with that shift, and I'm getting better at it day by day. So that's how I'll put it fast. But otherwise it's quite exciting out here.
Exciting to be in a happening place, I guess. Definitely. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Sure. Any other observations, any suggestions, any feedback for me, in case I can get better at it? I would love to. Okay, so I know it's already 6:41. If there are no further questions or comments, I'm good. So thank you so much once again, Professor Martin, for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Vote of thanks for today's session will be delivered by Meera GJ of first year MAHRM.
Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. I, Mira DJ of first year MAHRM, take this wonderful opportunity to thank our esteemed speaker, Mrs. Mahalakshmi, Senior Manager OD of L&T Technologies, for sharing her valuable insights and knowledge on the topic being talented versus being human. I would like to share some key takeaways from this session. Smart work is more important than hard work. We should respond and not react to the situation. Empathy and responsiveness goes hand in hand in a workspace. Have the courage to speak for yourself and face the failure with courage. Irrespective of the laurels, humility helps oneself to be grounded. We, the future HRs, would really work on the understandings provided by our lively speaker. I'd like to thank the pillar of our PG Department of MAHRM, Dr. N.C. Martin, for arranging this webinar, and Professor Sneha for her support to organize this webinar and providing us with an enlightening tour to the pragmatic arena of HR. I finally extend my gratitude to the participants from various professions and students. Kindly fill the feedback form which is provided in the chat box with your name and mail ID. Stay safe, stay vaccinated, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Maha. It's a very interesting, very inspiring session for our students. You brought all your experience for a better understanding, and you shared both the professional as well as the personal experience. Thanks a lot, Maha. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, your mic is muted.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I said thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. Pleasure interacting with all of them, and I really am grateful to your patience. I know it's been a long day for all of you. So my only request, sir, I hope the recording stays within this group. So
Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
We'll follow that one. Okay.
Sure. Because I think that's slightly important, and that's where I was,
Sure.
conscious that I share it with this audience for their own benefit. So that's
Yeah,
a
sure.
humble request.
And looking forward some more very interesting session from you, Maha.
Sure, sir. My pleasure. Anytime, my pleasure. So thank you so much. I would love to meet, interact with all of you anytime. So I think that's, it's always good to look at those faces and speak to them. So I always take a lot of energy from that, sir. I derive a lot of energy from that, honestly. So
we are really very proud to have our alma mater and for sharing the sessions for our students. Thank you. Thank you very much.
sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, God bless. Stay safe, all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
you,
much. It
ma'am.
was a
Thank
wonderful.
you,
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful session.